Hello everyone, it's Natasha from Treasure Books. In this tutorial we are making this easy DIY scroll journal from scratch. But let's quickly discuss the pros and cons of this type of journal. Let's start with pros. It's different and unique. It's extremely easy to make. It's portable, as in you can shove it into your backpack and not worry about anything. So it's perfect for traveling. It's super cool looking. It's very rustic, old, vintage, Harry Potterish kind of looking. And did I say it's so easy to make? And now let's discuss the cons. There's only really one drawback to this type of journal, which in my eyes is really not that much of a big deal. And it is this: because of the nature of the journal, the fact that it's a scroll journal, the fact that it's rolled up, when you open it up, it has a curvature. It's gonna do that. It's gonna be slightly curved. It's really no big deal, I don't think, because you can always do this. Roll it back the other way and it sits much flatter, and it's perfect. And oh man, what a cool gift this would make. So I hope you stick around. We're going to talk about all of the details. We'll do everything from start to finish, and I'll also show you how you can make this look where the pages are not visible, and also this look where the pages are visible, because you might prefer one to the other. All right, let's begin. I just want to say I had so much fun making this project and also filming this video. I think it's going to show through in the video. You're going to have to let me know in the comments down below. All right, now for real, let's begin. All right, so the materials that you need for this project are not many. You really don't need, you pretty much only need two things: paper and some type of a fabric. So let's start with the fabric. First of all, you want something that's pliable. You can see how soft this is. Something that is going to be able to be rolled up, but preferably something that is not going to have any creases in it when it's rolled up for a while. So for example, what I'm trying to say is that, of course, for this project, you can use a fabric like this. This is a upholstery fabric. And you can see this has been rolled up in my closet for a little while. And you've got all of these creases happening, right? So fabric, yes, you can go ahead with fabric, but you might have this sort of a thing happening with your journal. Whereas if you use something like this, which really was an old tablecloth, that's what this is. You can see it's not, I don't know what material this is, so I can't really say. I wouldn't say that it's leather, but it might be really soft leather. And this one as well, this was also a tablecloth. I don't know if it's coming up. Look how beautiful that looks. And you can see how soft these materials are. So you need something like that. And especially, you know, this color gives it that rustic look. Then you can look at things like, this is vinyl. So I just have a piece of this roll, and it's, you know, you can see the inside and the outside, but it has that leathery kind of look, I suppose, but it's fake leather, faux leather, same as this. This is vinyl, and I was actually going to use this one as a cover, but what I didn't like is the inside. So when the journal is rolled up, I mean, you can't really see it, but we are doing two different looks. One of the looks will have the pages be visible, and that also means that the inside of your fabric is visible as well, and I didn't like the inside of this one, so I didn't use it. But look how cool that looks. And this is that tablecloth that I was talking about. It's no longer a tablecloth because now I'm using it for my projects, but I do have a little, actually quite a bit of it left. Side note, okay, this is unrelated to today's video, but I just wanted to show you, some of you have seen this journal that I've shown previously, and this is the same fabric as this here, only here it's flimsy, and here it's quite, you know, it has structure. You can see that structure. How? I'll tell you how. I mean, I'm sure there must be an easier way, but pretty much all I did was saturate it with a mixture of white glue and water. That's all I did, and it's given a sturdiness. You can see like it's you know, it's not flimsy like this. But for a rolled up journal or scroll journal, you want flimsy. You want this. But what if you don't have something like this? Fret not, because you can make your own. And I have a video called DIY fabric paper or paper cloth. I'm going to link it right there, and also in the description box below. And basically it's so easy to actually do, as you'll see in the video. But you can see this journal, I used fabric, and other things. You'll have to watch the videos, but you're making a DIY fabric paper or paper cloth, which of course can be rolled up, you know, and you can use this to make a scroll journal. Look how cool. How cool does that look? So there are ways, especially this one was done with tissue paper and paint. So tissue paper and paint, and you can create this. This would look even better than any tablecloth. Okay, how much better does that look? Why didn't I only thought of that now while filming? Why didn't I think of this before? All right, so that's the fabric part covered. Let's talk about the paper. These scroll journals I envisioned a little bit differently than your standard junk journal. So what I used in here is a thicker type of paper. I didn't use thin, flimsy copy paper. And it's also coffee dyed, and I use this beautiful page as the middle page. I want the rustic old map kind of look, okay, because that's what it reminds me of, like an old map. Okay, totally up to you what kind of paper you want to put in your journal, so you can absolutely make your own decisions here. But just in case, if you want to make the same thing that I did, I'm going to show you how I achieved this result. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so you can see my reflection in here. You can see I'm wearing an apron, you know, just in case if someone comes to the door, I can like open the door and say, oh, I'm just in the kitchen cooking, when actually, you know, I'm making scroll journals. I'm cooking some journals. Well, I did make the tea for the papers, okay? That counts. All right, so back to this. Here we have a drawing pad, and this is 110 GSM in paper weight, so it's not that much heavier than regular copy paper, but it's still a little bit heavier. And then I mixed those pages in with some watercolor paper, and you know, I don't buy expensive stuff, okay? This is from Aldi, and it costs like $3. $3 for 50 sheets. You know, I'm happy to pay $3 for 50 sheets of some sort of heavier paper. And this is watercolor paper, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, but see that beautiful texture on the paper. Absolutely love that for the scroll journal, because I feel like pigments of the tea dyeing process are gonna like grab onto it even more, and I just love it. So as you can see, I used watercolor paper. You can see the nice large size. I ripped the pages out of the pad, and then I used my tear ruler. They're called tear rulers, and I happen to have one because I decided I wanted to buy one after 10 years of crafting without it. But prior to using this one, and actually I still do use my homemade one, you can see here, this is just a plastic ruler that I like scraped on some wire in my fence. Okay, so you can totally grab a plastic ruler and make your own tear ruler. And the reason why I chose to use the tear ruler is, of course, it's obvious. I mean, look at that. How beautiful does that look? Those edges in a scroll journal, you know, we're going for that old rustic look. I was going for that look. You might decide to have pristine white pages in your journal, and that's fine too. So if you use just a straight side of the ruler, I was going to say you get a straight edge. You still might get something like that happening. But if you use a tear ruler, this is my homemade one, you can see that beautiful edge. You can see all those jagged bits. And then let's see my store-bought tear ruler. There you go. What do you think? All right, store-bought, homemade. You know, I mean, the store-bought one is pretty good. All right, I'll admit. But, you know, before I had that, I was using this, and I'm keeping it because I still use it. So that's all I did. My large pages, when I pull them out, and then I would rip those edges. And I didn't even, you know, measure the papers, anything like that. I just kind of just ripped the edges off. So we're not going to discuss the size of the paper or anything like that, because you can choose to make tiny little scroll journals, so you will have small pages. If you don't have large paper pads like this, that might be your option, okay? But if you do want to make this exact size, that measures about 8 by 9 3/4. 8 by 9 3/4. So just in case. And of course, just quickly with the tea dyeing process, this is all tea dyed. And I have a video on how I tea dye my pages. I'm gonna link it up here and link it in the description box below if you want to see my process. But basically, once everything was trimmed down, I tea dyed all of the pages so that I have this beautiful rustic look. I'm not a big fan of these straight lines. It's just the way that the papers were sitting in the pan. It doesn't, you know, it's not too bad. Like, I'm not a fan, but it doesn't deter me from using the pages. I still don't mind, okay? And I have in total 6 pages, actually 7 pages in this one. I have 6 pages in this one, and I mean folded, 6 folded pages. And now this one, I wanted it to be a little bit thicker. I wanted a lot of jagged edges because that's the journal that you'll be able to sort of see the edges of paper when it's closed. And this one has 14 pages in total in this one. So again, it's up to you how thick you want your journal to be. You can have as many pages in there as you want. All right, so I have my fabric ready and I have my pages ready. One thing that I noticed while I was making my scroll journals, and it's too late for this one, but don't fold and get crisp folds here, okay, when you're folding your pages. It looks much better when the pages are rounded rather than folded into that point. It will make sense. See here, I did fold the pages in half, but I didn't get that crisp edge. Like I didn't, you know, do this to get that real crisp edge. But what I did is I folded my pages in half, kind of gently, so that I have a curve. It's still folded in half, but it has a little bit of a curve. It's really not that much of an issue or, you know, big deal, but I did find that this curved thing happening looks better than this pointy business. All right, so pages ready, fabric ready, and now first thing you want to do is trim down your fabric to size. You can see I left, well, you probably can't see, but I left a tiny sliver of fabric above the journal and below the journal, so I didn't want to leave too much. It might even look really nice to have your fabric like this, slightly shorter than the actual journal, so that these jagged edges of the paper are poking out. So it's up to you how you want to cut your fabric. All right, so that's the height of the fabric. Next thing I want to discuss is the length of the fabric. There's 3 options you can do here. Well, actually, it's just 2 options, I suppose. Option number 1 is this one here, where the whole journal is covered and it has this extra piece of material, extra flap, and it's closing everything in place and it looks like this. Option number 2, which I really think I like a little bit more, and I hate how this is coming up as black in the video when in actual fact it's dark brown. Option number 2 is this one here, where these beautiful edges of the pages are visible. That's what it looks like. You can see the difference. Alright, I had to take you outside to see the actual color of this journal. It's just so glorious, and it looks much different in real life than it does on camera, but this is how the material looks. Alright, so to achieve option number 1, if you like this option better, what you would do is when you're cutting your fabric down, you would leave a flap here. This is probably not enough of extra that I left because I knew I wanted to go with option number 2, but basically you leave the flap, and then when you roll up your journal, I'll show you, even if you leave a shorter flap, alright, it definitely needs to be a little bit longer than that, so you can see how, or you can cut the flap, the front flap shorter, okay? In all honesty, I was contemplating having a short front cover because why not? I think it looks quite nice like that. But this is just to demonstrate if you want to go with option number 1, you roll it up, okay, no pages visible. Now with option number 2, you would trim down your fabric all the way down to the signature, or even shorter, like why not? Maybe I will do that with this one, we'll see. All right, so I just unrolled that journal and I trimmed down the sides pretty much all the way to the edge of the signature. And then when I roll it up, of course you've already seen it 20 times in this video, but this is what you get. And I really like that look, so that's what I'm gonna go with today. Side note, if you have something that's quite beautiful like this one, but you don't like the inside, you know, that's perfect, it looks beautiful, but when I roll it up, you have the ugly side showing, which is this here. You might hate that, like I hated it for this one. It just doesn't go with the rustic look. You could tea dye it, I suppose, but one way to deal with that is to make the front cover shorter and of course you would trim that off. So then when you roll it up, that front cover is not going to start sticking out that way, and it's not going to show. So that's what that's going to look like if you just make the front cover shorter. So there's ways, right? There are always ways. So what I'm going to do with this one is maybe I'll just make it a little bit shorter like this, so that just the jagged edges are showing. And then all I'm going to do is cut this off, because I'm going for option number 2, where we can see all of the pages. So I'm just going to mark where I need to make that cut. I have a little mark there, and now, all right, perfect. Okay, and now I need to bind my signature into this cover, and I'm going to use a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Get my stuff, my needle, my waxed thread. It doesn't have to be waxed thread. I'm only using this one because it goes perfectly well. You can use anything you have. You can use yarn, you know, you can use twine, you can use embroidery floss, anything you have. Now we're going to make some holes in the cover and the pages all in one go. So I have aligned everything the way that I want it to be. Find my middle page, there it is. And now I'm using my pointy tool, or an awl, or anything really. You can use a thumbtack, and find the middle there and poke my first hole all the way through. Perfect. And now repeat. Let's go about 1 inch from the top. Excellent. And about 1 inch from the bottom. All right, done. Now you can do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I'm only doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but I wanted to show you on this one, you can do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, okay? I don't know why I chose to do 5 here and 3 here. Works fine either way. We're starting in the middle hole, so we're going out of the journal here. And now we're gonna go in through the top hole. Lovely. And now out through the bottom hole, and now we're going back inside through the middle hole. All right, let's have a look. What have we got over here? That's looking mighty fine. Make sure everything is nice and tight, and tie a knot. And now I'm gonna do that S thing. All right, I don't know if you hear when I mentioned this in one of my videos, but we're making a double knot, but we're making it nice and flat. So this second knot I'm doing this way. You make the S, this thread goes under this one here, this thread goes under this one here, and then that goes through, and then this goes through, and then you pull tight. You know, if that was too quick, you can just do a double knot. Don't complicate things. But basically what happens here is that instead of having 2 knots on top of each other and sticking up, this way you have knots sitting next to each other, so it's nice and flat. All right, that's the whole point. Or you can just go ahead and tie a little bow. Whatevs, as the young ones would say. Perfect. Little bow. So now what we need, of course, is the closure, something that's going to keep this scroll in place. You can just add a little something here, like so. What I'm trying to say is, on my journals, I have it attached to the back cover, and I'm going to do that on today's journal. But you can just simply have a little piece that removes completely, okay? Totally up to you. So what I did is lost my thing. Oh, found it. All right, so you can see here, I just cut a long strip of that same material. So obviously, in order to do this, you need to have like a long piece of material. But if you have only small pieces, I mean, you can still make it work. If you have 2 smaller pieces, of course, you can attach them together. You can do a little cross like this, embroidery stitch, to keep them together. And in fact, actually, I'll show you instead of telling you. So this journal is made in the years before I had this fancy stuff, all right? The crocodile and all the eyelets and the sewing machine. So all of this was done by hand. And this is what I'm talking about. I just embroidered a little X there to hold everything in place. This is all hand embroidery that you see here, okay? So you don't need to have any of the special stuff. There's a closer look if you don't really know what I mean. All right, let's get to attaching this. So it's really, really quite simple. We go to the back, very back cover, and you want to find the middle. You might not want to find the middle. You might want to rebel and say, no middle for you, little missy. In which case, you might want to have your closure up here. You might want to have it down here. Or you might want to have 2 belts or 3 belts, you know, going across to tie. That would look really cool as well. Why make it one way when you can make it 10 different ways is the way that I see it. Perhaps to make it easier and simpler, you might not want to choose to do this many tie rounds. Maybe it can just be 1 tie around, pop it through, right? And then you can have another belt here and another belt here, and it would look so good. So I am choosing to go with just the one in the middle. What I'm trying to demonstrate, I suppose, is for you to decide to go with your own. You know, I'm giving you some ideas and then you can decide what you want to do. All right, so I found my middle and now I'm going to mark, we're keeping it about 1/2 inch, I would say, maybe 1 centimeter, I don't know, that it really doesn't matter, away from this edge. And I'm going to mark myself where I need to make a cut. The cut has to be large enough for this to go through. Could be a tiny little bit too small, but not too big. All right, that's where I'm going to make my cut. Just use whatever you have around you, you know, something sharp like this. And as I said, it's better to have a slightly smaller cut than a too large of a cut. All right, here's what we have. There's a little cut there. And now let's see, is it too small? Because if it's too small, we can always trim a little bit more. If it's too big, we can't do anything. Ooh, we can shake the camera. We can always do that. And here we go. So another option, instead of doing an eyelet there to hold this closed, instead of doing the embroidery little X thing, you can simply glue it down. So you might want to perhaps have this longer piece like this and then apply glue, like some really good glue that's going to hold it closed, and then glue it down onto this piece. That would work. There's options. That was my very first choice, but then I decided I'm actually going to go with the eyelet. I'm using my Crop-A-Dile Big Bite Crop-A-Dile. Sounds like a crocodile, but it's actually Crop-A-Dile. And I'm going to make a hole right there through those 3 layers. Let's see if it's gonna work. All right, so that worked. Sometimes things fail. I had a failure yesterday, but in all of my years of crafting, I have learned one thing. And that is, you actually learn so much more from your failures and your little, they're not failures, but let's call them little mistakes. Something doesn't work out, it's a little bit of a mistake perhaps, but I won't call them mistake, I'm just going to say trial and error. I learned so much more through trial and error being a mistake, I suppose, than I ever did through things going perfectly well. Here we go. And I'll give you an example. When I made this journal, I was really struggling with how do I make it so not so flimsy. I didn't have, like, I just had a tablecloth. I've pretty much just started making journals, right? And you know how I did it? I mixed glue and water just to see, is it gonna work? And it did work. Sometimes things don't work. Like, for example, I tried ironing images on with Glad wrap. Plastic Glad wrap, and you know, for me it was a little bit of a failure, so I abandoned that idea. Okay, oh, look how cool this looks. All right, so now that you've attached your back thing, you can go ahead and you can wrap around as many times as you want. You can decide how long you want your wrapping piece to be. What I kind of look at this stage is, because I want to add a little charm at the end, I want that charm to kind of sit around here, not down here. I think I want this wrap to be a little bit shorter. You can just leave it as it is, like this. Because I was talking about all of those mistakes and errors, you know what I did? I put my closure onto the front cover. That's actually the front cover because it's shorter, and this back cover is too long. How did that happen? How? But it happened nevertheless. So all I'm going to do now is shorten this. I'm going to shorten it. That's all I'm going to do. I can leave it as it is, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to shorten it. Now I've probably made it too short. It's fine. All right, so here we are. That's nice and beautifully tied, and I think it looks perfect just the way it is. It doesn't even need to have a little something here, but I was planning to add a little something, so I'm just going to go with it. mainly because there's something to keep in mind when you choose, if you decide to go with a little charm. There's something to keep in mind. When you wrap your journal, this is quite tight. Even if you don't wrap it really tight, the pages might want to sort of open. So it's going to end up being tight anyway, which means if you choose a charm, for example, let's say you choose something like this to put on the end, which looks quite cool, you might have a bit of trouble trying to get it through. Like it will be like this one, impossible. You can't. It's too chunky. So you need something preferably a little bit pointy to help that process. So in my previous 2 journals, you can see this one, I mean, it goes perfectly well with the scroll journal, doesn't it? But it also goes through really easily as a closure. So I can just do this and then pull from this end, right? Just like that. Same with this little key heart. When I'm closing the journal, it's much easier for me to pop that underneath like so. And it can even stay closed like this. Like if you make it shorter, that also works. Or, you know, I can just pull it closed like this. Perfect. So do keep that in mind when choosing your charms. I have a whole lot of random stuff in here, you know, from broken jewelry and just little charms. This one here, oh, this one would be perfect. I was eyeing this one, but it's got this huge bulk on the side here. So even that is not going to go through easy. It's not too bad, but it could be better. I reckon this one would work. Or this one, this looks really good as well. Nice and pointy and long and perfect. What should I go with? I think I'm gonna go with this heart one. I'm going to have it here somewhere. All right, I marked myself kind of where I want it to go. And now I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did over here. So poke a hole, pop an eyelet through. And the reason why I'm using this kit here, this is actually sent to me. You can see I kept the little note. It's actually sent to me by one of my subscribers. Oh, thank you so much, because this actually came together with the crocodile, and these eyelets are not perfect size for the crocodile. So when I'm working with paper, I set the eyelets with the crocodile, but when I'm working with something like this, I just use this little kit, because why not? In case anyone's wondering, this is like a little kit for fabrics and denims and that sort of stuff. So, and then I just, you know, get some anger out with my rusty hammer over here. Anger? What anger? The anger when things go wrong. You know, when you put like your papers upside down in a journal, or where you, do I want to cut this off? Yes, I do. Do I? Yes. Maybe I can cut it off in like a little point, like that. Yeah. And now all we need to do is attach the key to this. Get my eyelets over here. Oh, would you look at that? You must think I'm so organized. You must think I have this pristine craft room and everything is just perfect. And you know what? I'm gonna let you have that impression of me. I am not gonna say another word. Pop that on there. And pop that on there. And you know what? All of these things here, okay? They have all been acquired throughout years and years of crafting. I hardly ever buy anything new. And if you like going to thrift stores and secondhand shops, you are likely to find all sorts of bargains, such as a huge bag of eyelets, look, you know? And let's see how this is looking. Here's a little close-up on how that is looking. I need to show you these. Here on my fake grass while I'm wearing my fake cooking apron. Oh, look at this magnificence. Let's look at them here against some leaves. Oh! Let's look at it rolling down my driveway. I am in love. Let's look at them on this table outside, on my floor, on my stairs, in my oven. Okay, that's taking it too far. You have to let me know what you think of this project. I think I'm totally overly excited about it, and I can't explain why. You know what we didn't do? I didn't show you how it would look on my shelf. Or in my hands with my apron on. Fancy. And here's how it looks on the shelf. I don't know how you would kind of display it, but this is just what I did, and I put it next to this box. And look at this box. My mum made this box. Look at this. Mixed media. All little things glued on. Look how cool is that. Lace. You can see lace. You can see all that stuff. So they kind of go really well together. These books maybe not so much, but maybe something like that. Oh, look at that. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this DIY scroll journal from scratch. I hope you love the idea of a scroll journal as much as I do. Do you feel inspired? I hope so. Please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.
What's for dinner, Mama? Yeah, Mama. What's for dinner?
What's for dinner? Why, wraps, of course.